You've tuned into Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. The body bags begin to pile up in New York City. Authorities are preparing for food riots and the like. Of course, the USS Crimson Contagion has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, film your hospital. This is what you get. Of course, there's a lot of controversy right now as far as what's going on, where it's happening. You'll find out soon enough how real this virus is. Who let this virus in? What's going on? Where's the meds? Where's the Plaquenil, the Zithromax? Why isn't it available for everyone right now, given that everyone's been infected by this Wuhan supervirus, this bioweapon released from a lab, this covert virus? Ladies and gentlemen, we're witnessing another 9/11 unfold before our very eyes. Have no doubt about it. Of course, the video guy's on vacation.
And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?"
Of course the orders still stand, ladies and gentlemen. This is a live exercise. You know that, right? Where, oh where did that video go? We'll never find it. Never in a million years, ladies and gentlemen. We saw it earlier, and it disappeared.
Some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it, and I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world, and that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We're in a live exercise here to get this right.
What did he say?
We're in a live exercise here to get this right. Some discussion of
this is like Event 201. This is like 7/7 when the exercise went real world. And in fact, we've seen numerous Gladio B events where they're running exercises, they're running drills like Crimson Contagion right when this thing gets released. Was it just a little too convenient that they were holding rallies for months after this thing had already begun? This virus came to America mid-January, ladies and gentlemen. And there were rallies, and there were Super Bowl parties, and there were concerts and events, and everybody was going to work. People were traveling around, just bathing in it, breathing it in, this airborne virus. And they were like, wash your hands. You don't need masks. Now they're like, everybody needs a mask. But remember how before they're like, oh, you just need to stay 6 feet away. Just wash your hands. It'll be okay. Remember that? That was like the drill for the longest time. They're like, oh, we've got this contained. We've got this contained. And we were like, does it look contained? Have you seen the videos from China? I mean, they're locking everything down. Body bags everywhere. People dropping dead. Like this thing escaped the lab. And you're like talking about we've got this contained? Oh no, this is not contained.
The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
One day it's like a miracle, it will disappear.
When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum.
I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So, you know, tyranny loves oppression. They love everything that's evil. That's their very nature. With this state of emergency that they've declared, ladies and gentlemen, they've suspended everybody's rights. And it's no joke. I mean, this is the stuff that, every conspiracy theory is made of. Oh, they're going to suspend your constitutional rights. They're going to roll out the National Guard. It's going to be martial law. FEMA's going to step in and take over. Body bags are going to be everywhere. FEMA camps. The works. The works. Ladies and gentlemen, they let this in. They let this virus in. This is another 9/11. And no matter what they say, never forget that. Of course they're going to seem like the hero. They're going to come out and they're going to be like, oh, look at all this stuff we're doing for you. Too little, too late. And now they're wartime presidents, wartime governors. Everybody's in a state of war with an invisible enemy. It's like the Iron Mountain Doctrine on steroids. It's like Operation Northwoods times a gazillion. How many times can you say a gazillion and still sound legit? We need a gazillion doses of hydroxychloroquine and Zithromax out there, over-the-counter style, like Pepto-Bismol. People need to be able to pick this up anywhere and everywhere. That's the only way to flatten this curve with this airborne AIDS that's going to keep reinfecting people. And unless we have some kind of national week of take your meds, we're never going to get through this. It's like everybody's got an STD, and unless everybody takes the antibiotic at the same time, we're just going to reinfect each other. With this airborne AIDS, this weaponized Chinese flu that just flew in on the aeroplane like a 9/11, and they just let this shit in for weeks and months, and they let it spread around. They let everybody, bathe in it. Ladies and gentlemen, they could have been handing out the chloroquine and the Zithromax, in January as a prophylaxis and start slowing things down. They could have done a lot of stuff way back in January. It wasn't until February that they started, stopping flights from China. By then it was too late. They said 20,000 people from Wuhan flew into America at the height of the epidemic. That's an official quote. 20,000 seeds just blew in from, the Fukushima zone. Plus all the other people from China. Plus all the other people from infected countries. And, people were working around the blockade by going through Canada or Mexico. They're just flying in from Wuhan to Canada and then Canada to USA, and they were there. And it was just, what a joke. You want to talk about containment? How long are we going to dwell on that? Like, whose fault is this, really? Well, sure, I think that everybody wants this administration to succeed. Everybody wants to move on. But this is a huge national travesty. Governing means being able to see into the future a little bit. And, they certainly missed their mark, to say the least here. They certainly didn't treat this seriously. They certainly weren't looking out for our best interests. They were more worried about their stocks. They all knew what was going on. They'd all seen these videos. They all got the intelligence briefings. And they were telling the public, oh, everything's going to be fine. Just wash your hands. And then they were selling their stocks and, preparing their VIP bunkers and the like. And this information actually made it pretty far and wide in the defense establishment. We're getting, echoes of what was being said back in January and February to, certain special ops crews. And quite literally, they were told to, prepare for the reset. And look, I mean, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. You just had to see these videos and go, okay, no, this is not the flu. This thing escaped the lab. And whatever it is, it's now, spreading in America. And we were talking about this in January, in February. I mean, we must have done 100 broadcasts, reached millions of people on the fake book, not the ScrewTube. ScrewTube doesn't let you do anything anymore, except get shadow banned, That's their thing. They're like, oh, yeah, let's let them think they're reaching people, right? And let's just let them think that nobody wants to watch or listen. but they're just like turning off the tap. But that's besides the point, ladies and gentlemen. They let this stuff spread. They built up this false sense of security. They let people just walk into it and get infected. Had people been properly warned back in January on the mainstream news, you know, through Congress, through various health organizations, people could have, you know, protected themselves. Instead of walking into a crowded arena or a crowded shopping center or a crowded, you know, grocery store, people could have prepared themselves, and they could have done a lot more as far as, you know, ordering masks and protective gear. I mean, you see nurses and doctors in trash bags with like tampons on their faces basically now in some places. And, you know, they could have prepared for that. They could have prepared the ventilators. They could have prepared the hospitals. They could have, you know, prepared the drugs. Instead, they've like suspended your rights. They've declared the state of emergency. I mean, they induced the emergency, right? It's like they came by and kicked a pregnant woman, and then they're like, oh yeah, you need an abortion for sure. That's exactly what they did. I mean, this is murder. This is what they've done. They've tried to murder everyone in this country. They've tried to destroy this country and destroy the world. And it's not just Trump and it's not just China. It's every NATO country. It's every New World Order country that let this in. And they were all lying to their citizens. They're all like sneering and laughing. Quite literally, ladies and gentlemen. Video guys on vacation. But, you know, this is an exercise. This is Crimson Contagion, an operation that happened in October 2019 that coincided with Event 201, which was like a drill talking about all of this stuff. This mystery influenza. Then there's Project Zyphr, the top secret paperwork that was out there floating around last summer describing this whole thing. And then you got the Wuhan military games. Now, we don't know who deployed this, where, and when. But we know that the Chinese basically censored doctors. They did everything they could to boot this up in Wuhan, incubate it, protect it, and then ship it off, export it to every country. So they played their part. You know, whether it came out of the Chinese, you know, CDC, that was 300 yards away, or if it came from the other weapons lab in Wuhan, or if it came by, you know, on, you know, some other transport, they booted it up. They knew what they were doing. Have no doubt about that, ladies and gentlemen. And so, you know, everybody's involved here. And that's the thing, you know, they're going to turn this into a wrestling match, into WWE, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, no, it's their fault. No, it's their fault. And you're just going to be like, okay, I'll pick a side and I'll fight, you know. It's just like the elections, Republicans versus Democrats. It's the same thing, except now you got the Chinese and the New World Order, you know, basically all plotting your demise. And it's a big win-win for this system. You know, a lot of these socialist countries, they have these huge death taxes. So automatically when somebody dies, they take like 40, 50%, boom, right off the top. And then they don't have these freeloaders on their, you know, healthcare systems. You know, in Europe, I mean, that's a big expense. All them old people. And then, you know, in China, they got 1.5 billion people. You can bet, you know, many countries were like, you know, green lighting this at the top because they're like, oh yeah, we're facing budget problems. We got all sorts of deficits. I mean, this is what happens when you give government a motive to kill you. They'll fucking do it. Pardon my language. And, you know, this is the reason why the Constitution, our Constitution, was written the way it was. You've got all these rights to protect you from government because the government is not your friend. You've got the right to free speech and to protest your government because the government is not your friend. You've got the right to bear arms because the government is not your friend. It's not an accident that the Second Amendment is there right after free speech. You've got the right to privacy. You've got the right to silence. You've got the right to an attorney, to a speedy trial, to a jury of your peers, to not be cruelly punished by this government. Those are your rights. Why? Because government is not your friend. It's the very nature of it. It's like a necessary evil. It's like fire. It can either cook your food or burn down your house. And that's what government is, a necessary evil. But it's now been totally hijacked by the dark side. And it's just, they're getting more and more bold. You thought the other, GMO, or let's just say eugenics programs were bad, like the GMOs, like the death towers, like the fluoride, like the vaccine. You thought those eugenics programs were bad. Now look at it. They've, stepped it up a notch, to say the least. And, they were fully exposed in the WikiLeaks, in the Podesta files, as being a bunch of, child molesting Luciferians, a death cult, Skull and Bones, 322, the works. It was all confirmed from Hollywood to DC. They were exposed. Nobody's watching the Grammys anymore. Nobody's watching the Emmys anymore. Nobody's buying into this cult anymore because it's so obvious, so exposed. And so they're like, fuck it. Let's Jonestown everybody. And that's what these people are doing. They're Jonestowning everybody. And look, if the lemmings are going to jump off the cliff, let's just, watch them do it. There's no helping them anyways. Sodom and Gomorrah is going to burn. And, whatever deal they thought they had with the devil didn't mean shit. Because, you're watching their entire system implode. Now, it's on life support. They've injected trillions of dollars to basically buy up the stock market and, manipulate the prices. But for the most part, this system is totally gone. We're going to get into the news and the latest updates, but they're talking about 30% unemployment. That's worse than the Depression. Plus you've got this problem with this perpetual forever flu virus, this airborne AIDS that keeps reinfecting people. And so it's just going to be one wave after another. One wave after another, after another, after another. We're starting to see the second wave hit China. Things are starting to shut down again. They just reopened. They're shutting down again. It's still not, back to normal over there. And they're 2.5 months into this, plus or minus. But more like 2 months and a week. But 9 weeks later, they're still into it. 28 weeks later, they'll still be into it. 2 years later, they'll still be into it. And if they told you the truth now, a lot of people would probably just commit suicide. If they told you, like, what was really going on, people would be like, fuck that, no way, I'm out of here, And so they basically, are just easing you into the cold bath. Oh, first it's 2 weeks, then it's 4 weeks, right, of in-home kind of stay-at-home orders. They've gone from shelter in place to stay at home. That sounds a little more homely, doesn't it? Shelter in place sounds severe, but stay at home, that's okay. That's not anything to complain about. So they've gone from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. It'll go to, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, June, July, August. All of a sudden it's winter again, and here comes the second major wave. This is Boris. Boris didn't wash his hands because it's an airborne fucking virus. Ladies and gentlemen, why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? When it was a storm in the Sea of Galilee and everybody was freaking out, well, you know the story. At least you should know the story. Ladies and gentlemen, have no fear. This is all part of the plan. Sodom and Gomorrah is going to burn. And they just don't know it yet, for the most part. The sheeple, that is. They're thinking, oh, this will just kind of blow over. And you saw how they manipulated people at the very beginning. They're like, oh, this is just a flu. This is no big deal. This, that, and the other. And it just keeps getting worse and worse. They don't know what's going to hit them, but they'll figure it out soon enough. And it's another necessary evil, if you will. But if you look at the Bible, there's been, multiple resets, numerous civilizations that have been wiped out for straying away over and over again. I mean, the Old Testament is all about that. One civilization after another, just wiped out. Why? Because, they were transgressing. They became an abomination. You look at society today, it's 24/7 product placement for the devil. 24/7 product placement for the dark side. And you look at public schools, I mean, it's full-blown indoctrination, molestation, and the like. In California, 1 in 4 kids have become trannies out there. Can you imagine? I'm not sure how many of you are Generation X. I mean, that's the only generation that has any chance of pulling us through this, really. But you can't imagine 1 in 4 people being, like that back in the day. And I'm thinking we got something for this.
Be careful if they are too friendly, if they try to win your confidence too quickly, and if they become overly personal. One never knows when the homosexual is about. He may appear normal, and it may be too late when you discover he is mentally ill. So keep with your group, and don't go off alone with strangers.
So that used to be American education back in the 1950s, the golden era. Look at us now, ladies and gentlemen. Look at us now. It's so whacked. We've gone from the happy days, we've gone from Leave It to Beaver to whatever it is today. But even back then, you look at the television commercials from the 50s and 60s, I mean, they were pushing the vice, they were pushing the dark side. And little by little, it became what it is today, the slippery slope of wickedness and scandal. I mean, we should become, when this is all over, we should go back to our Puritan roots as much as we can and start branding, these evildoers, the wicked ones, with scarlet letters that correspond to their sins. Now, look, every good person out there commits sin. No one's perfect, but there's really a huge difference between somebody that's trying and somebody that's, a full-blown evildoer. Anyways, we got a lot of news to cover. You guys want to get into the news? How's everybody doing out there? Is there anybody out there? We're broadcasting live on the ScrewTube and hacking the Matrix. Relentless censorship and the like. We appreciate everybody finding us. Never miss a show. Bookmark our website, stfnreport.com. That's STFN Report for Stranger Than Fiction News. We broadcast every day, and if one channel goes down, we'll start up another one. The website is new and improved for your news pleasure, so be sure to check that out. And of course, the video guy on vacation. We'll try and get there eventually with the news. Lots of news to cover, lots of numbers and the like. And where, oh where, shall we begin? Look at all these bodies. The incinerators. They're going to be going on full blast. Where do these semis go, is the question. Now, we got the crows in Seattle, in Washington. They say that's normal out there. Everything's going to be normal pretty soon. Even this, stay-at-home business is starting to feel pretty normal. The state of emergency. The National Guard going door to door. Whoa, the video guy's fired. Okay, getting into the news. Rachel Mad Cow. What does she have to say, ladies and gentlemen?
There is no sign that the Navy hospital ships that the president made such a big deal of, the Comfort and the Mercy, there's no sign that they'll be anywhere on site helping out anywhere in the country.
So it's the typical bread and circus on television. And, they're just fighting amongst each other over ridiculous things. And they're totally missing the big picture because they just want you to pick between their side or the other side, but not the real side, ladies and gentlemen. There are now 155,000 cases in the United States. Of course, you've seen the footage. It's there. The Comfort is in New York City, in New York Harbor, not far from the World Trade Center. We'll be able to, relive, have flashbacks of 9/11. And the death count is, right around there right now. So it's already another 9/11. And they totally let these planes in. For all the doctors out there, why isn't the hydroxychloroquine, Zithromax, and Zinc combo being prescribed immediately to people with symptoms after a positive test? And this brings up a bigger point, because a lot of their tests aren't accurate. And there's no reason to think that these new 5-minute tests that they're about to roll out are going to be any more accurate than the tests that they've been putting out there so far. And why wait for a positive test? There's a lot of people dying before they actually come out positive. And again, this is a bioweapon. It's made to circumvent detection. It's a stealth, covert virus. Ladies and gentlemen, masks don't work. That's why all the doctors and nurses are getting sick. Masks don't work. The tests don't work. Nothing works against this virus. 14-day quarantines don't work, right? So why wait for a positive? Video guy is so fired. So fired, video guy. Tired of this dude. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a video girl on the broadcast. That would make things more interesting. Oh, for fuck's sakes. That's it. Get him out of here. Get him. Oh, he's on strike. Sabotage, man. Anyways, they should be getting these meds to everybody right now. New York State reported 7,000 new cases and 253 new deaths. So if there's about 20 people per semi, that's like another 10 semis that got liquidated in New York. Where did they go? To the incinerator? To the mortuary? Where did they go? Are they burying them? Oh, this was sweet. Quarantine day 20. Oh, shit. But that was a really nice idea for, turning the table into a ping pong table. I never would have thought of that for some reason. You know what I mean? Think outside the box. This is the London subway right now, and it's still jam-packed. This is today. So, the UK is pretty much toasted, ladies and gentlemen. And it's just a matter of time before we find out how bad it is. Now, they're making it seem like a lot of these people are dying because of heart attacks or natural causes at home or other respiratory illnesses. They're not, confirming the vast majority of the cases out there. And you just have to wonder, who's actually getting tested right now? What's the criteria? What are the demographics? Because the numbers are much, much worse than what they can actually test. There's a bottleneck there. The test kits are a limiting factor, to say the least. And I don't know what the video guy is doing here. But in any case, the numbers are much worse. So fired. So fired. It's tough getting good help out there. Bear with us as we fire the video guy. So this is what you need. The Zithromax, the Z-Max, baby. The Plaquenil. I mean, this stuff is going to be out there on the street. Hey, man, you want some Plaquenil? I got the Z-Max. Come and get some. And toilet paper. That's the kind of guy I want to meet on the street right now. But how do you know it's legit? How do you know they're not sugar pills? You got to be able to test it, ladies and gentlemen. But you go ahead and try and get yourself some Plaquenil and Zithromax. They'll laugh at you. They'll laugh at you wherever you go. Ooh, bitches. Did you see that one? That guy was spitting on the produce. Boom, he got karate chopped. See how he karate chopped the guy? It wasn't even a punch. See that overhead just like tomahawk? He about decapitated the dude with his bare hands. Boom. Oh, delicious. But yeah, you get a lot of super spreaders out there. People spitting everywhere, pissing everywhere. And, this stuff is highly infectious. Just wait until it starts going through the sewer systems in these big cities. We found that out from the China videos. They were dumping, tons of disinfectant into the sewers because the virus was aerosolizing from the urine and the feces and turning into a gas. It's pretty wicked. And we've talked about virus load and the relationship between virus load and severe symptoms. The dose you get makes a huge difference. Now, it seems like the French government is being investigated by their parliament. We'll see how far that goes for basically, making this situation worse than it had to be. They had no masks, no protective gear, no meds, no nothing. And they knew. There were emails from the French government to their president back in January saying, oh, the tidal wave is coming. The tidal wave is coming. And once again, they were telling everybody, oh, it'll be fine. Just wash your hands. Every government was complicit in this worldwide infection. This pandemic was 100% preventable. But all the governments together basically conspired against the citizens of the world. That's what this new world order is. It's tyranny. It's eugenics. It's murder. So, videos from a hospital. Now, was this staged? Are these, dummies in the bags? Ladies and gentlemen, I think, we're going to find out how real this virus is. Personally, I've been to the grocery store recently and have heard like an orchestra of people coughing, like whooping cough. It's exactly what it sounds like at a certain stage before they go critical. And, numerous people like the Twilight Zone, with packed grocery stores, Black Friday. I was telling people, don't do that. Of course, I go in with the mask and everything, the works. But, it's like you got to maintain your supplies. There's no telling when the supply chain is going to cut out here. And so you don't want to be empty. Oh, these are, the people in France again. This is like socialist housing. And you should see the guy lives in a 6x6 cell, and he's like, people in prison are treated better than this. If we can't even leave our shitty little apartments, state housing apartments, the guy's like, I'd rather go into prison because at least prisoners get medical checkups and the like. Not so sure if it's better in a prison or not, but this was a rather revealing story. And I just kind of wanted to show you their bathrooms out there. You know how the French stink, real bad. And it's such a shitty fucking, society out there to a certain extent. We could just go on and on about this, but there it is. I think like the toilets. Hold on. Oh, we missed it. But it's so third world out there. So we'll just have to see how that all ends up. Oh, look, we could go on, and all we have to say really is, all of this crap comes from Europe. The 322, the York Rite, the Scottish Rite, all of the Freemasonry. It comes from Europe. And all of this shit is basically cooked up over there. But yeah, a shitty fucking country, man. Let's see. Look what happens when you instinctively don't trust communist China. Taiwan sets the gold standard. They knew those people right next door, bad fucking news. They had all the gear prepared. And it makes you wonder, why we didn't have our act together. Instead, they're colluding with the Chinese to exterminate people. I'm not sure what's worse, the invading army or the traitors that let it in. You know what I mean? A friend reports that Shanghai parks and tourist attractions are closing soon after they were reopened. We've been getting images of, new bodies dropping to the floor. 47 million Americans unemployed, soon to be 32% unemployment rate. So the 6-step plan, of course: fear, censorship and control, shut down, blaming, the puppet president, martial law and checkpoints, and then the 666 mandatory vaccines. You heard it first on the 6 o'clock news on Channel 6, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to check out 666 Fifth Avenue and the relationship to 666 Pennsylvania Avenue, which sits at the tip of a pentagram. You couldn't make that shit up. 24/7 product placement for Luciferian ideologies on the television and in the schools, and they didn't change shit with this administration. They let Hillary go and they rolled out the Death Towers. They, genocided the Kurds, and now they're going to genocide you. At first they came for the Kurds, now they're coming for you, bitches. Coronavirus may still be contagious for up to 8 days after symptoms disappear, studies find. And, this just confirms that the virus lingers. And we're getting all sorts of reports of relapses, reinfections, and there's nobody out there with a study that proves long-term immunity to this virus. They're talking about antibodies and trying to collect antibodies to help people. And even people that are infected with HIV have antibodies. That's how they, came up with the antibody test for HIV. The body tries to fight it, but it can't, because this thing fights the immune system. It attacks the immune system. And what are we seeing in the most severe cases with this virus? A totally depleted immune system. Just like HIV. And you've heard it's got an HIV component to it. This is a chimera strain, a pseudovirus from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The smoking gun is in the video description. Be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com. You can check out all of these news stories. Virginia governor, look at this shill. Look at this. It looks like a fucking lizard. You can see the tongue just want to whip out at you. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam announces stay-at-home order. I mean, you just got to love these cocksuckers with stay at home, shelter in place, grab your ankles, no Astroglide for you, bitches. You let this shit in. Okay, the people on Amazon are walking out. They've had enough in New York, and everybody's infected.
Out here not caring about any of us. There's people sick in the building and not caring about this pandemic, this epidemic, this virus, and it's affecting us.
And, Amazon was a big winner from this virus. That makes them a prime suspect, of course. We know that the Event 201 was co-sponsored by Johns Hopkins and Bloomberg Health. We know that Johns Hopkins is the one that put out the maps that are being used by the CDC and all the news channels. And Bloomberg is nowhere to be seen. He had $1 billion to spend on an election to run advertisements about himself, but not $1 billion for ventilators or anything like that. All right. So, prime suspects. They're all suspects, ladies and gentlemen. Dem governor who banned coronavirus drug relied on doctor with no license. Look at this one. Look at this guy. And he's got like this white, kind of like rim around his mouth. Another cocksucker. It's like cocksuckers united out there. Now, Cynthia McKinney, made famous on 9/11, after 9/11, did the deep state Pompeo really call Beijing and ask the Chinese to refrain from disclosing what they had learned? So maybe the Chinese were under orders to not say anything from DJ over here. You know what I mean? But that's the accusation. We have yet to confirm that, but a very interesting idea. The Chinese are saying that they're certain. We're not so certain about these 5 troops that were taken into a Chinese hospital. We haven't seen any, official statement on that or any documents that correspond to that. But that certainly is an interesting angle of the story. The World Military Games happening just before Halloween out there in Wuhan. So you never know. The Italians have had it. They're taking, this is a politician out there, and he put out a live stream taking down the European flag and replacing it with the national flag. And they've been completely abandoned and abused for the most part. But there's no telling what kind of money they've actually been able to reap from this European Union. The rich countries have sent a lot of money out to the poorer countries, but that's another story. 2 months later, how a large viral load could make coronavirus infection worse. So now the mainstream media is reporting on what we were talking about 2 months ago. The bigger the dose, the worse it is. And it's all about viral load in your body, in your house, in your town, etc., etc. It all has an impact. And every infected person is like a lit cigarette. And, one person smoking in a room will fill up that room pretty fast. Imagine 2, 3, 4 people smoking in that room or in that house. That viral load keeps building up nonstop, and each breath becomes more and more toxic. And that's what really kind of drives this disease, as well as pollution, anything that might inflame the lungs. And you'd be surprised what inflames the lungs when you're hypersensitive due to this virus. That's essentially what this virus does. It weakens your immune system. It makes you hypersensitive to anything and everything. And all of a sudden, perfume, deodorants, detergents, the smoke from cooking and the like will, make your lungs just go wild, producing all sorts of mucus, and you start drowning in it. And so you really want to use anti-inflammatories for the lungs, detox, herbal remedies that we've listed in the video description until you can get a hold of the Zithromax. Is that going to be a long-term solution? It's hard to say. It may drive down the virus load for 30 days and then it'll come back like herpes. That's yet to be determined, but we're getting reports, numerous reports, of relapses and reinfections. So it won't be long before you'll start seeing, those news articles. But you heard that. You heard tomorrow's news today here on STFN. This is the long line to the food bank somewhere in America. And seemed kind of, unreal. This is reported by Pittsburgh. This is somewhere around Pittsburgh. And people were commenting, well, look at all these people with their brand new SUVs going to the food bank. And there's a lot of people that are, overspent, and, they don't have, hardly any money to see them through the next month if things go wrong. And now, everybody's just been caught with their pants down. And you have to feel bad for, people right now, for a lot of people. I mean, especially the victims. I mean, it's a horrible death. People are just choking and suffocating alone in isolation. And, nobody to help them. It's a horrible, this is a horrible thing. It's like, Trump gassed the entire country. And now he's going to come back and he's going to be like, oh, here, I'll send you a check for $1,000. It'll be okay. I don't think $1,000 is going to cut it. And to be quite honest with you, I think they can take their, deflated paper fiat money and shove it up their ass, to be quite honest. And, that brings us to, our last broadcast, which is in the video archives. What else can you say? I think we've said it all in this broadcast, over and over again. And I guess, now what people want to know is, how long is this going to last? How many people are going to die? And, when do we get to the end of this tunnel? And it's hard to say. I think at best we can hope to manage this disease like HIV. But in the worst case scenario, this thing mutates and, becomes twice the killer next winter. I think this summer, when it finally gets here, will be an opportunity for people to reposition themselves into, some kind of little house on the prairie, if you will, and, restart their lives in a more self-sustaining way. But, not everybody's going to be able to escape the cities. Not everybody's going to be able to escape the eugenics programs. And undoubtedly, they'll usher in something even more, tyrannical than what's going on now. I'm not sure how many of you remember the pre-9/11 world, how nice we had it. And then, all of this BS came around, and it just got more and more Gestapo-like, more and more New World Order-like. And now it's just full-blown dystopian, V for Vendetta, pick your movie. And so you can just imagine what comes next. You're going to have to show your papers, please, that you got your vaccine, that you're not infected. There's going to be checkpoints everywhere to get a job, to get an apartment, to travel, restrictions everywhere. You're not allowed to be, the citizen that you were until you can prove that you haven't been infected. And guess what? Everybody's been infected by this virus. And so they're just going to, triage the people that they want to have access to society versus the ones that they don't want to have access to society. So you can just bet that everybody that was on the red list is going to stay positive, and everybody that was on the blue list is going to somehow be negative. But they're all positive. They're all infected. And, they got an antidote. I mean, Trump's proof of that. That dude must have been infected like 2 or 3 different times by now. And, he's just still running around like no big deal. So chances are, they've got the meds. Will you get the meds? Will you get the solution? Will you get the treatment? Ladies and gentlemen, do you want the treatment? How do you know that, you don't show up to the hospital and they just inject you with some other kind of shit, And they're like, oh, we had a heart attack. So, these demons are everywhere. And you can tell them by their lisp. Yes, you've tuned into NBC. This is Rachel Mad Cow. They've all got this accent on NBC. The San Francisco, 2 men plowing each other accent. And it drives a normal person wild. I think that's why people tune into this show. Because we're not talking like the libtards out there on TV. There's so few normal people left, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.